With huge news coming out of Newcastle over the past 2 weeks, PIF summit meeting setting the expectations and financial discipline they expect from Eddie Howe, backing Eddie Howe to carry us through this summer rebuild, a transfer strategy shift, rumours of Anthony Gordon going to Bayern Munich or Barcelona. It's been a wild ride over 2 weeks, and we're going to go through all of it and try and have a better understanding by the end of this video of what PIF are expecting next season and how they're going to take us through this rebuild into next season. But first off, if you're new around here, I'm Adam, this is Two for Joy. Help me reach my milestone of 1,000 subscribers. We're so close, so get down there, like and subscribe, have your say in the comments, and let's get into it. So we'll start off with the PIF summit meeting, and this is going back a little bit, but the ownership, there's little bits being leaked out further and further as we go on. But obviously the ambition has been emphasised to go back to being at the top of the table, getting into the Champions League. And next season it's going to take some real discipline, some financial discipline, and we're going to have to be serious with how we do our transfers. They have big dreams of what they want for this club, and it takes smart planning and setting clear expectations so that there can be no excuses for next season. And realistically, PIF, I think they're not going to just open the checkbooks and outlay as much money as they can after the summer window we had last year. So there will be a bit more financial restriction on us looking into transfers for next season. But they have confirmed they are keeping Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe will stay, but the results must improve. And personally, I might have changed manager, but now that he's here, I feel that PIF need to back him. They must evolve, the club must evolve, and we need to look to give him the tools in order to take this forward. And I think this comes down to David Hopkinson really going through the hierarchy at the club and changing things. And I know that there's news that Shola Amiobi will no longer be the loan manager. And I kind of feel like if you look at certain managers throughout history, they all change their backroom staff. They all change their coaching system. And Newcastle have stagnated in this over 4 years and kept the same coaches, the same style, the same system. And we need to evolve. Eddie needs to evolve. And he needs to show PIF that he can evolve over the next season, and that we can bring something new to the table and reinvigorate the ambition for this team. But the transfer strategy shift is the big one. So, as we well know, the club have come out and made plans to sell a few key players like Anthony Gordon and invest in younger signings. And from what I've heard, the remit is to be targeted around the 21 to 24-year-old. No panic buys, and build a squad for a long-term vision. Now, there are lots of players being linked with Newcastle, and I'll go through some of those later on. But realistically, at the moment, it's more around how we shift players on high wages in order to rebalance this team and kind of focus on bringing a long-term vision to the club and bringing players in on reasonable wages in order to put us in a financial position to stay within the Champions League or that top 7 or 8, or as it might be next season, 9, which is absolutely ridiculous. But this kind of comes down to our youth development. And the youth development and investment from Newcastle, the academy's key, and realistically the £24 million training ground sponsorship we're receiving from Knox will allow us to upgrade the training facilities and the youth setup in order to bring youth players into a better setup, which also will allow us to bring players from overseas or from other clubs. And when we're showing them round and they can see that we have better facilities, it's more enticing for players to come. But the young talents like Leo Shahar, Park Sung-soo, Anthony Cordero and Alex Murphy are all on the cusp, in my opinion, of developing into players that could play in this first team. And I think the outline from PIF is setting clear expectations that Eddie Howe needs to evolve. He needs to come forward and bring these players into the team. And there is no better time than now. Realistically, with 3 games to go and the position we're sat in the league, this is a perfect opportunity. We know we're not in a position where we're going to be relegated. Realistically, it's going to be very difficult for us to get into Europe this year. And this, for me, feels like a key pivotal moment where certain youth players should be given the opportunity. If you do not give them the opportunity, they can't develop, they can't progress. With Lewis Miley suffering a horrible injury and supposedly being out for at least 3 months, this is the perfect opportunity with Tino Livramento out, Lewis Miley out, Leo Shahar to come into this squad and play at right back. Now, whether that's Kieran Trippier starts and Leo Shahar gets some, I don't want to say junk minutes, but like 20 minutes at the end of the game to kind of bed himself into this team and we can see what he's got. This is the perfect opportunity for it. And I really feel like we need to see these players being brought through now in order to know, or in order for PIF to know, that Eddie Howe is serious about following the expectations that they've set out for him. And along that line, the transfer rumours, obviously with Anthony Gordon being linked away to Bayern Munich and Barcelona. Anthony Gordon's agent was pictured in Barcelona midweek. Now, whether he was on holiday there or whether he was touching base with Barcelona, nobody really knows. The rumours and speculations are absolutely unreal. But it has been confirmed that Bayern Munich have touched base with Newcastle over trying to agree a fee with a view to take Anthony Gordon this summer. Now, the projected fee is around £80 million, and it's believed that Anthony Gordon will have no problems agreeing a contract with Bayern Munich. For me personally, I find it baffling, to be quite honest, that Bayern Munich would like to take a player the likes of Anthony Gordon, who, while he has shown glimmers of something special, his inconsistencies and flawed injuries have probably outweighed that. And realistically, in my opinion, Anthony Gordon has been this season probably more focused on personal accolades than the club or his teammates. It kind of leaves me in a position where I feel like if I were Bayern Munich, this probably wouldn't be the move I was going for, but I'd be quite happy if we could secure a fee in the region of 70 to 80 million for Anthony Gordon, and it would leave us with a really good balance sheet moving into the summer window to rebuild. Now, obviously, Craig Hope has come out recently and said that Newcastle have targeted Liam Delap. Apparently, the same report from Craig Hope that Liam Delap has turned down Newcastle. Now, in my opinion, Liam Delap is not probably the striker we should be going for. He's not in the mould or at the finished state. He is kind of in my opinion, in a similar frame to Willa Sula, who is currently outperforming Liam Delap. I'll make that clear. And Newcastle really need to be looking at the price point of around 15 to 30 million to bring in several players to the squad, being a right back, a centre back, defensive midfielder, possibly another right winger and a striker, plus the key point of a goalkeeper. And Nick Pope has been linked away to Leeds United this week. And if we're not looking to take Aaron Ramsdale off of that loan and secure him for a £20 million fee, I think the big issue is who Newcastle look to bring in as a keeper, because while the talks of James Trafford will linger on all summer long, I don't believe James Trafford is at the price point or established enough in order to take us to that Champions League level. Now, you may disagree, let me know in the comments, but I believe we need to go for a slightly more established goalkeeper And there is a couple being linked with Robin Rissa, who's obviously young, very exciting up-and-coming goalkeeper from RC Lens. And then a backup goalie from Juventus being linked for around £14 million. I will go through and do another video on all of these, but this is just the latest stuff coming out of the club. Now, the training ground sponsorship is a massive one, £24 million. Knox obviously investing in something they see a future in, and this is key for Newcastle to upgrade this facility, and supposedly the facility will be upgraded by 50%, which is massive. And these sorts of deals are what we've been waiting for the last 4 years, realistically. And obviously the shirt sponsorship coming up as well with Seller, their £25 million sponsorship ending at the end of this summer from the previous Fun 88 of 5 million moving to 25 million. I'm really hoping that David Hopkinson can secure something in that region of growth. Somewhere around the 40 to 45 million pound for a shirt sponsor would be fantastic. And it would give us a real boost going into next season. And then finally, the big news, really, which I don't think anybody's talking about at the moment. In order for us to do this summer rebuild, we are going to have some sort of a war chest due to the fact that we're letting, like, realistically, probably 8 to 9 players leave this year. And our Champions League campaign is rumoured or estimated to have brought in a revenue of around £60 million. And this will obviously bolster whatever the sales are, the training ground money that's come in, wherever we finish in the league, and what we have available under the new governing rules of squad cost ratio. So realistically, I would expect Newcastle to be going out and spending somewhere in the region of 150 to 200 million pounds this summer, which sounds like a lot of money considering what we spent last season. But realistically, to bring in probably 6 to 7 players and build for the future and target young talent, this is going to be a really difficult window. And I think it really comes down to it's personal preference of what we believe that was said to Eddie Howe in that PIF summit meeting, and the guidelines that have been put on him from PIF, whether they've put any guidelines at all. Realistically, I think going into this summer window, it needs to be Ross Wilson who takes hold of targeting the talent. And I know that we always give the Eddie Howe has final say on players that come in. And it's one of the reasons he left Bournemouth when they started to take away his ability to have final say on players that came into the football club. But look at Bournemouth. Look at how they've grown. Look at how that sporting director model has flourished at Bournemouth. And some of the exciting young players that they've got at the moment could go on to be worth 3, 4, 5 times the money they've paid for them. So I really feel like Ross Wilson, who's done this before at Notts Forest, who have a much bigger squad than we do, is kind of perfect for this role at picking players at that price point in order to rebuild Newcastle United. And this is kind of key going into playing Notts Forest at the time of recording the day before. Notts Forest currently have a lot of injuries and they are putting out what they deem as a second string team. Realistically, I think Murillo's out, Hudson-Odoi's still out, Morgan Gibbs-White obviously with a terrible head injury. There are holes all over this team, and Newcastle should really be looking to exploit this and try and take points. But if you're playing against a team that plays a low block, and I'll go off this off the back of watching The Noise, it's a fantastic video. If you're going to play a team that's playing a low block, and we've seen it all too many times with Newcastle. If we have more possession, we struggle to break down teams. We struggle to have that creativity up front that will allow us to break teams down. And I echo the sentiment of the noise. If that lineup comes out for us playing against Notts Forest and Will Asula is starting up front, while he's been in a rich vein of form, he is much better in games where he can get in behind and run at defences. Now, I don't think we're going to get that liberty, or we're not going to have that freedom going to Forest. Realistically, they are going to sit in deep. They are playing for points. They are still part of that relegation battle, and they need to take something away, especially after being drummed by Aston Villa the other night. So I expect this game to be a lot more difficult than we probably initially would have looked at it on paper. But in my opinion, Nick Voltemade is perfect for this start. And having seen Brentford hold off Man City for 70 minutes today, playing a 4-4-2, I really want to see Nick Voltemade start up front with Wissa. I really want to see the dynamic of going back to, realistically, having wingers play as wingers and forwards play as forwards, and not drop deep and not play as the 10 or a centre midfielder, and give him the freedom to show that he has the desire to work hard and evolve into this team, and that Eddie has a clear strategy or a game plan to go up against Notts Forest. Now, whether we'll see that or not is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You can let me know in the comments whether I was right or wrong. But realistically, going into next season, there has to be a better plan going into this summer window. We need to make sales early. If Anthony Gordon's set to go, Anthony Gordon needs to go to Bayern Munich before the World Cup. We don't need to be dragging out transfers throughout the World Cup. We need to be picking up gems early and setting down a baseline for this rebuild in order to bring players in. And I would say, if we're looking at players, there needs to be some spine, some statement signing to show some intent. Someone who will change this team brought in early in this summer window in order to allow other players to follow. And I use this example like Kieran Trippier. When the takeover first happened, you bring in a name like Kieran Trippier, and then other players are excited by the prospect of the project. If we start this window and we bring in 2 unknown players, the message will be very murky to big stars or players that are in positions where they're underrated within their teams. But like I say, hopefully the rebuild will go well. Hopefully Newcastle will get a result at Forest, and hopefully we won't have the same window we did last summer. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Like and subscribe, and hopefully, guys, I will see you in the next one.